understand the importance of the online safety of children. Um, if you could move on to the next slide. Thank you. So, why this topic is very important? As you see on the slide, 1 in 3 internet users globally are children under the age of 18. And to us, it may be strange that the children grow up with the internet or in the cyberspace, but this is really the reality. And this becomes very important, especially at the time of COVID. Because of the e-learning and distance learning modes, more children are asked to learn using the e-learning platforms, and which means that there are more children coming for the first time to the cyberspace. And we believe that it's very important for them to know what to do and what not to do in the cyberspace because it's not entirely safe. Next slide, please. So this is a indication and the slides proportion percentage of individuals using the internet by age. And as you can imagine, in Asia and the Pacific in particular, the proportion of users at the age of 15 to 24 is very high. So we believe that they are vulnerable. They may or may not know the internet and online safety and security well enough. So we believe that this is the topic that we need to prioritize moving forward. Next slide, please. So the challenges that we are facing at the moment is that 73% of adult internet users have seen someone being harassed online, and 40% have personally experienced it. And the number is 65% among young internet users, the age between the age of 18 to 29, and 70% between 18 to 24 years old, which is quite high, and it's of something of our concern. And 30% of young people in 30 countries reported being cyberbullied, and 1 in 5 skipping school because of that. And the problem and challenges also encompass online fraud, hate speech, discrimination, and other divisive online risks on the rise globally. And we believe that digital devices and educational platforms often lack adequate safety measures and features. And because of the COVID-19, as I mentioned earlier, more and younger girls and boys are joining online and playing and socializing, and so are the predators. Next slide, please. So what are the types of risk children and young people face? These can be divided, as you see on the screen, as aggressive, sexual, and values and commercial. I wouldn't go into detail, but some of the content includes violent content, pornography, racist and hate speech, as well as ads and embedded marketing. And how does that manifest? In the form of harassment, stalking, grooming, and sexual abuse, as well as ideological persuasion and exploitation and misuse. And these manifest in bullying, uh, hostile peer activities, sexual harassment, potentially harmful user-generated content, and gambling, just to name a few. So we believe that these needs to be addressed holistically and systematically by the not only the education community, but also in the ICT community. And this is something we need to join hands. Next slide, please. So ITU, because of the importance, developed the Child Online Protection Guidelines. In fact, the work started 10 years ago, But very recently, we updated the guidelines to address the emerging trends in child online protection, as well as the technology. Next slide, please. So as you see on the screen, um, the updates and upgrades were specifically targeted at the special situation of children with disabilities and issues surrounding the new technology and developments. Of course, 10 years ago, social media wasn't a huge phenomena, but today it is. And accordingly, 4 sets of guidelines were developed, as you see on the left-hand side, for policymakers, industry, and parents and educators, and children themselves. And I would like to highlight that this character, Sango, you may find him on the YouTube. He's becoming very popular among the students across Asia and Pacific and beyond. And he explains different features of child online protection, how to use the phone, tablet, password protection, and how they should deal with different types of issues that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, it's becoming very popular because they have an interactive and engaging features, which are perhaps conducive to children getting the information in an interactive way. So there's a storybook, playing cards, and workbooks, and social media campaign. And it's easier to understand. And at the moment, the episode 1 and 2 are available, and the rest will be available in due course. So please feel free to enjoy the online safety course with Sango. Next slide, please. Additionally, I would like to add another important dimension, which is girls in ICT. ITU has been promoting the gender equality and to address gender digital divide. And accordingly, we have an initiative called Girls in ICT. We celebrate that day in April every year. And this year, we were very fortunate to be able to celebrate with Indonesian girls and young women. And we believe that this, as well as the child online protection, will be a very important component to school connectivity and the empowerment of the youth, as well as other uh, new internet users who are coming to the cyberspace for the first time. And we would like to make sure that they have the at least basic knowledge to protect themselves online, and while enjoying and benefiting from the power of digital technology. Next slide, please. So this is a very short a summary of the case studies. Um, we have been supporting several countries in Asia and Pacific, including Indonesia, and we believe that the the needs assessment roadmap to develop guidelines or update, sorry, the guidelines which exist may be quite useful. And as you see on the left-hand side, there will be an approaches covering legal, cultural, and technical aspects. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to present ITU's work. And as I said, there's a lot more perhaps we can share. Please follow us with the Twitter and LinkedIn account, which will provide you the latest activities of ITU and ITU resources. And thank you very much, Madam Moderator, for running the presentation from your end. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Atsuko. So, and then I will open. So while we are waiting, okay. From the participant. Not yet. Well, Mrs. Atsuko, I think I could update the Google Drive and let's see that uh, your presentation, I think should be here, the new one, the one that you are looking for.
So if
School connectivity, yes.
yes, yes,
Now
yes.
it's appear.
Ah,
Should I present it?
sure. If
Okay.
time allows, I can very briefly
Yes, yes.
summarize what it is.
Of course.
I'm
I
so sorry for this inconvenience.
That's okay. Let me open it. School connectivity.
Yes, thank you. Actually, this initiative goes in hand with what I presented earlier, which is a child online protection. Um,
Okay.
as
Is
I
it like
mentioned,
this?
if you could, yes, if you could make it a full screen, that'll be.
Yes. I think I should download it first. Hopefully it works fast and we can enjoy the full version.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Perhaps I
Okay.
can start describing what this initiative is all about while waiting for the presentation to load, if that's okay with you.
Okay. Let me open it first.
Sure, thank you.
Ah, can
Excellent.
you see this? Okay. Yes, please.
Uh, would you be able to make it full screen, perhaps?
Okay, full screen
Yes.
like this.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, please.
So, as I very briefly mentioned earlier, ITU aims to or helps member countries to connect all schools globally. And we work with UNICEF through an initiative called GIGA to connect the unconnected schools. So this presentation is about the connectivity part of ITU's work. Next slide, please.
Oops, sorry. This one?
Fantastic. Yes,
Okay.
beautiful. So, in the case of Indonesia, we partner with FCDO of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the United Kingdom uh, to implement the school connectivity initiative for 12 months. And globally, there are 4 countries which are covered by this project, which is Kenya, Nigeria, and Brazil, in addition to Indonesia. And as I mentioned, this project is in sync with the Global School Connectivity Initiative, GIGA. If I can give a very short background to this GIGA initiative, um, as you know, when COVID hit all of us, the schools were closed and society basically went into lockdown. But what we realized in the process was that not all students and teachers and the school facilities were connected to the internet. So that left a lot of children unconnected and unable to learn under the COVID lockdown. So with UNICEF, ITU came up with this program and national projects to initiate the school connectivity projects. And there are 4 technical areas of focus, which is number 1, regulatory analysis, framework, and tool development. And 2, to promote the sustainable models, because not only the fiber optics to school, which is needed, but how to pay for the services and how to upgrade, how to buy and procure the computers that can benefit from the fiber optics would be of importance to the education community. And additionally, related to that, we would like to promote a more conducive environment for investment by government, by perhaps private sector, and by investment mechanisms which already exist. And four, advancing digital skills all across, and that includes the child online protection that I mentioned earlier. And we are very happy and privileged to have Indonesia as a project country, and we are coordinating to lay the foundation for potential future GIGA activities to initiate the full-fledged school connectivity all across the country. Next slide, please. So very quickly, sorry, I get carried away because it's an important topic to all of us. Just to highlight, these are some of the actions and activities that the project is going to undertake. And what is perhaps very interesting is this interactive school connectivity maps that we are developing globally with UNICEF and other partners for the initiative. And we hope that the recommendations would be useful for the education community as well as the ICT community to move forward towards the all connected schools as well as empowered children and teachers all across Indonesia. Next slide, please. So coming back to the specifically on school connectivity maps, there are three related activities. One is to assess the current state and identify gaps and impact areas. In all countries, all across Asia and the Pacific, this is a stage where ICT and education community and ministries come together and identify, okay, these schools are connected and these schools are not connected. And even if they are connected, sometimes the capacity is low to conduct full-fledged e-learning. So this is a very important phase of developing an interactive school connectivity maps. And accordingly, we aim to develop an appropriate investments needed in terms of the telecommunication network, electricity supply, and facilities at school. And then that should lead to the planning of infrastructure development. That includes the piloting as well as sustainable business models and plan the network development and maintenance accordingly. And we hope that that will lead to positive externalities such as stimulating demand for infrastructure, measuring progress that could also feed into the community networks, not within the school only, but will have community-wide benefits through the connectivity. It can also provide a powerful planning tools and create business opportunities and the community engagement as a whole. Next slide, please. And this is one very quick overview of the interactive map, which is based on the open source geospatial analytical tool, which will allow the data selection, whichever layer you would like to see, that will allow you to compare, filter, and export. And this aims to aggregate the statistics at the provincial level. And accordingly, the methodology covers the collection of the school data, infrastructure data, the connectivity options, and investment required, as well as the visualization that you see on the screen. Next slide, please. We also try to see different layers and additional information from the geospatial information that you see on the screen. Just to give you as an example, this on the right-hand side explains the distance to transport network nodes by kilometers. And the lower map shows the distance, the schools within 4G coverage area or outside the 4G coverage area. So if the school, unconnected school, is covered already by 4G, perhaps the usage of cellular network could be an option, and that could be how can I say, less investment intensive. But if it is not covered and we have to use a fiber optics, for example, as you see on the left-hand side, there is an more investment that is required. But what is perhaps useful for all of us is that ITU has a tool called Last Mile Connectivity Toolkit to calculate which technology will be available and how much it may cost to connect those schools. Next slide, please. And I have another example, as you see on the screen, and this is the case of Kalimantan Barat. And I'll be happy to, if this presentation is shared with participants for their perhaps review. And if there's any question you have, we'll be happy to answer that. Next slide, please. So the key takeaway from this project is that it is ideal to use the fiber optics because that will provide more capacity and it is more appropriate for the school learning environment. We don't want the video to be unstable when students are learning. However, the quick and perhaps less investment intensive way to connect could be the 4G coverage as you saw on the map. And we could then aggregate and calculate the capital investment options. And this slide has, of course, a number of hints in terms of how we can calculate such investments, taking into account the electricity supply, the nearest community interests, the point of interest, as well as the possible pilots. And in case you need a more granular data, perhaps that will also give us a more accurate cost estimation. And we hope that this interactive map will be also very useful and enrich the assessment of community demands at large. Next slide, please. So
No,
thank you. The next steps include to use and update and maintain the map you have seen. We would also want to collect more granular data for a more accurate investment and network planning. And as you saw, that will be very useful for calculating the OPEX, the operational side of the expenditure, as well as potential revenue, how to sustain such initiative. Next slide, please. And these are the data sources and resources in case of further interest from the participants. And we will be happy to answer any question you may have. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to have the connectivity side of the presentation to you today.
Well, thank you very much. That's such a complex presentation, very interesting, both from the first about children protection in internet, right? And then the second of about school connectivity. So I will ask if there is participant who want to ask something for the speaker, Mrs. Atsuko Okuda, please. Okay, from Sandra Novita from ILP, she asked, our student, Indonesian student, has had a taste of online learning for the past 2 years due to pandemic situation. So what advice would you suggest to us as teacher to make sure that the technology used in school is safe?
Thank you. This is an excellent question. And this has larger, perhaps, implications as well. Now, coming back specifically to the question on the safe usage of technology, normally the ICT ministry and the education ministry select uh, and standardize the tools and networks. And I believe that the security by design are already taken into account. However, what is perhaps most important is the user side of the cybersecurity, because in many cases, cybersecurity breaches is not only a technology issue, but sometimes the users share passwords with a lot of people, or the passwords are easy to guess. For instance, your family name, first name, birthday, something that someone can guess. So um, there are a lot of things that we all, as a user, can do ourselves. And I believe that teachers have specific and more important roles to advertise and to promote safe use of internet. So, for example, when the schools are connected and all the students are using the internet, I believe that is a perfect platform to ensure that the teachers and students are aware of the password requirements, what to do talking to the strangers on social media, and what are the comments that you should or you shouldn't make about your friends and someone that may be hurt. And in case of cyberbullying, for example, um, there are already do's and don'ts which will be very helpful. So I hope that through these dialogues, meetings such as this, we can all agree that these are priorities, and perhaps um, I hope that you will find ITU guidelines and tools and Sango, of course, useful, and to make sure that students and teachers are aware of these safety measures. So I believe that it is up to us to a large degree to take these precautions. And thank you very much again for the excellent question. It was really, really timely.
Yes, I'm also very impressed with Sango. I think I will try after this. And then second question from Mr. Karnadi, Mrs. Asuko, what is the model for school connectivity beside using maps as standard for distance measurement?
Thank you. So the question is how to measure the distance.
Yes, what is the model for school connectivity beside using map as standard for distance measurement?
I see, I see. So there are different models. You are absolutely right to
Ah, okay.
connect schools.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in addition to using the map that I showed, there is also other way to connect schools from the community sides. In
Okay.
Indonesia, as you know, there are many community networks which are already connected as a community facilities. And one way of looking at school connectivity is from that side. If there's any Wi-Fi or cellular networks which already came as part of a community network initiative, I believe that it's very important that is extended to cover all the schools within that community. And second, there are communities that are very, very hard to connect because of the geography, because of the distance. Perhaps it's an isolated island. We also recommend the use of satellites. Just for your information, ITU implemented a satellite communication project in the Pacific, provided over 90 ground stations in 9 countries and connected schools and health units and government offices